And now the next primary controls that we have is detective control naman tayo. So as per the slide, alert the proper people after an unwanted event, effective when detection occurs before material harm occurs. Designed to reduce likelihood. So the same way, it's the same with preventive control. Take note of this, reduce likelihood. And an example here is burglar alarm, review of exception reports. Okay, so yung discussion natin kanina, it's about preventive controls. As we have learned from that concept, before the risk happen, dapat naharang na siya. Dapat dun pa lang, wala nang impact on your end. Now, this time naman, detective control. From the word itself, detect, ibig sabihin, it will give you sign that the risk might happen or is happening. Nangyayari na. So, example natin, burglar alarm. Depende sa, well, depende kung saan nyo nilagay yung burglar alarm nyo. Like example, if it's outside the office or outside the building, most likely, wala pang impact on your end. Wala pang nakawan na nangyari. But if it's positioned inside the office or inside the building, so most likely, may impact na yun. Pwedeng sabihin natin nasira na yung lock, nung gate, nung door, or whatnot. So, depende. The point there is, it detects prior impact of risk or nangyayari na mismo yung risks. So, there. Kaya siya burglar alarm, yun nga, it gives you a sign that there's a thief, there's a burglar. And next one is review of exception reports. Kaya nagkakaroon ng exceptions reports. Yun nga, exceptions. Ibig sabihin, it's not usual, it's not normal flow or process. That is why, if you're gonna generate an exception report, lalabas doon kung ano yung variance, kung ano yung gap, kung ano yung mali kung ano man yung set mong parameters. So, sige, example tayo ulit based from my experiences. So, yeah, I'm working at a bank. Alam nyo ba, aside from the burglar alarm, may, well, I think pwede naman i-share. Yeah, I think pwede naman kasi practice naman siya ng mga bank. Hindi lang naman sa bank namin. Anyway, um, di ba, sa, well, you know the cashier or if you um, target sa cashier, ang tawag namin doon mga teller. Pero yung teller kasi hindi na siya new uh, term. So the new term that we're using is service associate. Yon. So mga SA, service associate sila, and they're doing tellering function. And then meron din kami new accounts. Yung gagawa ka ng account, yung mag-open ka ng deposit for savings, current or checking account, and then time deposit. Anyway, focus tayo dun sa tellering function. So, kaya siya tellering kasi they are the one assigned to hand to, ano ba? Sila yung sila yung nakikipag-transact directly to the customers, to the bank clients, wherein sila yung gumagawa ng day-to-day operations like withdrawals, deposits, basta labas-pasok ng pera ng isang bangko. So yung assumption natin, example nga, yung sa preventive natin, if in the risks there is of course robbery or stealing of cash or theft. So, ang magiging detective control sa isang bank, kapag teller ka, kapag service associate ka, tellering function, merong sa cash drawer nila, meron dong alarm. So, kapag, yan, example, nagkaroon na ng robbery, bank rob. So, dun sa cash box ni teller, ang hirap i-visual no kasi nakikinig lang kayo sa akin. Anyway, I hope may imagine nyo. Yun nga, sa cash box, meron doon sa gilid, may button. May button si teller. So, in any case, magkaroon ng robbery, kapag pinindot ni teller yon, pupunta na yan sa officials or sa police station, ma-alarma sila. Minsan, Ang nagiging issue minsan dito, yun nga, napipindot ni teller. So, syempre, agrabyado buong ah, head office. Kasi head office ang unang ma-alarm dun eh. Syempre, magkakaroon ng signal si head office na there's something wrong with a specific branch. So, yun. Chine-check din ng head office yun. And at the same time, magkakaroon ng false alarm sa mga police, which is really disturbing for them. Anyway, so aside from that, ano ba bang pwedeng detective control sa isang bank? Yeah, fire alarm. I think normal naman yan. May fire alarm sa isang bank. So if ever may sunog, so magsisignal si fire alarm, lights, sounds, and then ma-alert din si fire department ng local government unit. So there. So I hope it's clear. So the first one we have discussed yung preventive. So dun pa lang naharang na yung risk. So therefore, walang impact. This time for detective control, it can reduce likelihood kasi nga na bibigyan ka na ng signal ahead of time bago pa magkaroon ng impact yung risks na in-identify mo. However, pwede rin namang ongoing. Nangyayari na yung risks. So it's like example yun nga, nagkakaroon ng bank rob. So kinilik ni teller yung alarm para ma-signal yung head office at yung mga police department. So, may impact na, may damage na on your end. There. And then the third one, we have what we call corrective control. Correct the negative effect of unwanted events, and then this time naman, designed to reduce impact. So, sa preventive, it's likelihood. Sa detective, it's also likelihood, pero mas designed to reduce yung likelihood sa preventive control. This time naman, for corrective control, reduce impact naman. So, ang focus ng corrective control, nangyari na o nangyayari na yung risks na identify mo. So, example is disciplinary action and then bank recon or bank reconciliation. Okay. So, sa una, preventive, bago pa magkaroon ng impact, naharang mo na. And then kapag detective naman, it gives you signal prior to the risks or nangyayari na yung risks. And then this time naman for corrective, either nangyayari na or nangyari na. So, binibigyan ka rin ng signal, it's just that ang control dito, it corrects yung risks. So, yung impact, mababawasan. Hindi na magtutuloy. Hindi siya pupunta doon sa total impact na maximum impact for you nung na-identify mong risks. So, example dito, disciplinary action. Siguro you're familiar if, if you're an employee, maybe you're familiar with IR, yung incident report, wherein HR will give you IR or disciplinary report or whatever you call it, which means the main reason why you're given an IR simply because you have violated a specific policy of your company. Kaya ka na IR. Pwede siguro na late ka, pwedeng you're not wearing proper uniform or whatnot. Yon, IR. And then siguro kung hindi ka pa employee kapag student ka naman, maybe siguro naman meron kayong guidance sa school nyo. So, if you have a guidance office, most likely, let's say you're kind of pasaway. So, the guidance office can give you disciplinary action wherein they can provide you a sanction like requiring your parents to go to the school, or they will give you tasks to be done for specific hours. In FUL, graduate on FU. In FU, we call it community hours. So again, ang main point kung bakit ka binibigyan ng disciplinary action, of course, to be disciplined. Because you have violated a specific school policy or regulation. That is why you're given sanction or a disciplinary action. And then the second one is bank reconciliation. As you can see, this is kind of familiar for you, especially if you're an accounting student or internal audit student or CPAs, of course. Bakit nga ba tayo nagbabank recon? We are doing reconciliation from the word itself, reconciliation, meaning you're fixing things. Kasi baka hindi balance yung cash on hand mo versus cash in bank versus yung record mo versus sa record di bank statement. That is why ang main role or ang main reason why you're doing bank recon is for you to tally, for you to balance yung cash mo sa record mo in your books versus yung cash in bank or yung bank statement. So, it is a corrective control. Kasi nga, you are reconciling amounts for you to tally those records. Okay, my experience, corrective control in a bank. Well, uh, I guess it's a corrective control. Oo, siguro, yeah. Siguro you're aware naman when you are if you have a savings account or a checking account in a bank wherein there's a limit na mini-maintain mo, there's a maintaining balance like sorry. Sorry about that. Like example, you have the savings account and then the bank's policy is for you to maintain at least 5,000 peso na bank na amount or your balance for that account for the whole month. Now, if ever less than ka dyan, like example, naging 4,000, 3,000, but of course, depende yan sa ADB, yung average daily balance mo, ADB, we call it ADB. Depende sa ADB, but if majority of your ADB, or I should say average yun, if your ADB is less than 5,000 for the whole month, therefore, you will have a fee na yung maintaining balance fee na usually 250 pesos sa atin, 500 peso. So, as you can see, it's a burden for us, tayong mga depositor, na I mean, we are saving money in our bank, of course, to save our future. It's just that this is the policy of the bank that we need to maintain. We have this maintaining balance. It's just that hindi mo na sunod yung policy ni bank, therefore, binigyan ka niya ng fee. So, that is a corrective action. That is a corrective control. For you to ensure na, hoy, ikaw, depositor, 5,000 ang maintaining mo, so, bigyan ka ng fee, nabawasan pa lalo. Para i-ensure mo na dapat maintain siya sa 5,000 for the whole month. So, dapat yung ADB mo, 5,000. Another example, puro ko bank. Sige rin naman. Previous company ko isa pa. I used to work in a BPO company. Yeah, I work at night before. And then sometimes mid-shift. Depende sa account. Because most of our clients are from the US. Anyway, for BPO, I hope magets ako ng iba. Especially for the one who's listening, working in a BPO company as well, medyo maintindihan nyo talaga. In a BPO setup, it is really important to speak in English. You can never speak in Filipino when you're talking to the US people, mga American. You can't. Otherwise, if that caller or that your client nagreklamo sila that why you're speaking on other language that they don't understand, and na QA ka, na quality assurance ka, na someone from your operations checked on your call that you have you use other language aside from English, ang tendency nun for BPO company, tanggal ka na agad. Walang ligtas. It's really evident kasi lahat ng calls recorded. Well, not all. May mga techniques din. Anyway, hindi ko dapat ituro yun. Anyway, for a call, especially if you're US account or you're handling US people, or US account, you can't speak to other languages. English lang dapat. So yun. Aside from that, speaking in other language, syempre kapag nagmura ka, if you speak in Masasamang mga words or mga bad words. It's not allowed also. Talagang tanggal ka. No, no ano yun. Anong tamang term doon? Wala nang process, wala nang due process. Nasa pinirmahan mo kontrata yon. Once you have done this violation, tanggal ka na agad kinabukasan. Exit ka na. Ano pa ba? Shouting, of course. You can't shout. You can't really shout. Or sometimes even, well, some people speaks normal pero parang sumisigaw sila. It's not okay also in a BPO company. It's not allowed to do so. Yon. Daming sinabi, no? Ang point ka lang naman nun, those are violations. Therefore, ang control ng isang BPO ron is, wala, tanggal ka na. Goodbye. Alis ka na sa company, tanggal ka na. Well, some companies are mababait. Some BPO companies, they just give you warning and then suspension. But most of the BPO companies talagang tanggal. The itself, tanggal ka na. So, that action is actually corrective control. Ang point lang naman nun, we are handling direct clients from the US. So therefore, we need to follow our policy. Otherwise, this is our corrective control. So, para hindi mag-pull out yung client sa amin, etong BPO company, tanggalin ka na lang namin. Total, kaya ka naman yung palitan. I mean, it's kind of normal in a BPO company din na mataas ang turnover. Kaya nga everyday hiring. Even now, even ECQ, GCQ or whatever, naka-lockdown tayo, they are still hiring. Yeah. Okay, FYI lang. Okay, this is the last control for primary control. We have directive control. Out of the 4 controls, ito yung pinaka medyo kakaiba. Yeah, medyo kakaiba siya. I'll explain later. So, directive control cause or encourage the occurrence of a desirable event designed to reduce both likelihood and impact. So, ulitin natin. Preventive control reduces likelihood, also the detective control. And then, yung corrective control natin reduces impact. But directive control can reduce both likelihood and impact. Sige, explain ko later. Examples here are policies and procedures, training sessions, and job descriptions. Now, ano yung pinagkaiba nito sa tatlo? Una, preventive. Bago pa magkaroon ng impact yung risks, bago pa mangyari yung risks na identify mo, naharang na. Sa detective control naman, the risk that you have identified, either it's giving you signal that it can happen or nangyayari na mismo, kaya siya detective control. Now, corrective control naman, either nangyayari na yung risks or nangyayari na. May impact na on your end. And you will provide a specific process or action to correct yung risk na yun para mabawasan, para hindi ma-maximize or up to the maximum level of that na impact ng risk na yun. Now, this time naman, directive control. So, from the word itself, directive control, direct. So, ang point na to, yung control na to, dapat may objective yon. So, yung objective of specific control leading towards that. So, directing to the objective of the control. That's the main point of directive control. So, paano siya nangyari? Okay, example number 1, policies and procedures. As you can see, policies and procedures are everywhere. Yeah, when you go to school, when you go to college, when you go to your first work, and even when you go home, there are policies and there are procedures. Even in the government, meron laws and regulations. Okay, so paano siya naging directive control? As you can see, may easiest example, student manual. In a school or a university, there's a student manual wherein andito yung mga do's and don'ts for a student. Now, what makes a student manual a directive control? That student manual is just serving as a guide. Meaning, Guide lang yan, na itong gawin mo, dapat ito hindi mo gawin. It's just a guide. Now, you, as the student, you have the option to follow or not to follow the guide. So, ang point lang nito, for directive control, yes, it can help you. It can help change your perspective for you to follow a specific process or not. It's just that you, as a person or as a student, you have the option to follow or not. You can use your professional judgment if you want to follow or not. So, yes, it can help reduce the likelihood. So, kung sinasabi sa student manual mo, don't do this, don't do that. But at the end of the day, you have the option to follow it or not. It can reduce yung impact kasi before it happened, nababawasan na yung likelihood nga. And then, specific provisions in a student manual na pwedeng makabawas sa impact ng risk na identify. But at the end of the day, again, it's your decision. Nasa sayo pa rin yung bilang tao or bilang student. If you're gonna think of it, medyo, di ba, parang sa apat, si directive control yung naiiba. For some companies or for some professionals, they consider directive control as not so okay, not so good. But for me, personally, I prefer directive control as long as you are consistently applying or implementing yung directive control, then it's okay and it's fine. So, ang akin kasi, ang directive control is leading towards future. It's future-oriented. So, yung directive control na yun, like example, itong policies and procedures, as long as this is really effective, this is adequate enough, then we can say that it can really affect someone's perspective to follow or not to follow a specific provisions. There. Next one, training sessions. Sorry. Okay, so for the training sessions, as you have noticed, what we're doing right now is actually one of the controls. What we're doing right now is actually a directive control. Why? Because I am sharing with you my experience and then what is the right one according to the standard and then according to the exam. But again, at the end of the day, it's your decision if you're gonna follow what I have said or what we have said, your instructors or not. You have this option to follow or not. So ang amin, we are here just to be your guide. At the end of the day, kayo na magte-take ng exam, it's your call. Kayo ang masusunod sa magiging sagot nyo. Based from what we have said, based from what we have explained, everything we have said. Okay? So, training session. Aside from this, we are doing facilitation and knowledge sharing. Di ba usually kapag if you're a new employee, you will go under training. Di ba sabi nila probationary period or probi. If you're under training, then they will give you like 1 month or 1 week. If it's 1 month, then good. Well, yeah, in RCBC, I had 1 month training prior to going to the field work or going to the office. I mean, doing my audit work. 1 month ako naka-training pero same bayad, yeah. Anyway, it's good if you have a training prior to your work in audit. For some kasi hindi. For my previous companies, merong 1 day lang, merong, most of them are 1 day training lang. And then salang na. Yun. So, that training session can help you. That training session is your guide for you to perform your work effectively. Otherwise, again, you as an individual, as an employee, you have the option to follow or not. Okay? Lastly, job description, JD. So, siguro pag I hope nag-apply na kayo ng work. Whenever you're applying work, like if you're using JobStreet, LinkedIn, ano pa ba mga app? Dami. Kinakalam ko eh. Lagi ako sa JobStreet nagsisearch. Anyway, if you're using that app, as you have noticed, you're gonna search like example audit, search mo. And then, lalabas na dyan yung mga options. Anong position, anong company, and then how much, yung salary. Once you have clicked that specific item, andun yung expectation, andun yung JD, andun yung mga roles and responsibilities ng isang of that position. So, the job description is actually the same as a guide. Meaning, it's just a guide. If, let's say, may employee ka man, that job description is just a guide if you're gonna follow that or not. If that provisions can be followed or not. At the end of the day, you as an employee, it's still your option, it's still your choice if you're gonna follow it or not. Nasa sa'yo pa rin yun. Gets? Yeah. Okay, example sa bank. Yeah. Sige. Best example ko dito usually, for me, signages. Signages are directive control. How come? Kunwari, nakalagay sa signage doon, no smoking, no fire alarm, no fire alarm, no fire, no deadly weapons or fire weapons, whatever you call it. So those signages are just directive control. Because you, again, you as a client, you as the customer, you still have the option to uh, to bring those deadly weapons or not. Pero again, depende yon. Remember, we still have preventive, we have directive, and then we have corrective controls. But we're just talking about directive control. So for that directive control, those signages are just directive, a guide. Okay. I forgot to mention from the previous controls. Sabi nila, well, hindi naman sabi nila, sabi natin, sabi natin, prevention is better than cure, which is true. Even here in classification of control, it is really true. Remember, it's okay. It's really better if you're gonna prevent a specific risks or maharang mo na yung risk na yun prior having that impact to you or to the company. So prevention is better than cure. So ang point ko lang doon, ang the best control ever. Wow, control ever. The best control is preventive out of the four. So prior happen, at least assured ka, nabawasan na yung likelihood na it won't happen anymore. So imagine a bank. A bank without door lock, without gate, without the vault, without the code of the vault, without the cash cash vault inside the main vault. So most likely, mas high risk na ang bank robbery. Mas high risk ng stealing of cash. Kasi na direct access eh. Instead of na harang na siya, ang daming procedures na gagawin, ang daming validation na gagawin. Dire-diretso siya. So, as compared to other controls like directive, corrective, and then detective control, preventive control is the best one. And also just sharing with you, when we are testing, when we are doing our audit procedures, we are focusing mostly, I'm not saying lagi, I'm not saying 100%, but most likely we are evaluating most likely preventive controls. Kasi nga, yun yung pinaka-key control na prior to happen, prior to have the impact of that risks, naharang na. I hope it's clear.